Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Today we are going to talk about metaphysics. We might say Buddhist metaphysics. Now, the use of this word metaphysics can be a little misleading because very often we read in books that there is no metaphysics in Buddhism. The Buddha never spoke about metaphysics. The original meaning of the word metaphysics was really to talk about something beyond physics, the metaphysics, something beyond physics. Here, when we talk about something beyond physics, very often people think it is something about the spirit or spirituality or spirits, which is recognized as something present in the world in some kinds of Western thinking, and also that this deals with the transcendental realities and things like that. So, but the subject or the term metaphysics is used in philosophy, in modern Western philosophy, to refer to a discussion about various kinds of problems that arise. So it is a field of philosophy. So I use this word metaphysics in reference to that, and that means these questions that philosophers put forward and also try to answer, the Buddha has been referring to them and also concerned about them. So this is why it is necessary to talk about this. Where did we stop and where are we supposed to stop? The time.
Okay, you stopped at 8.
Uh-huh.
I'll cut this part out.
Yeah. And the important thing is that we should, there are certain questions that arose in Western philosophy where certain questions have been asked. Like, for example, during the 17th century, that time after Christ, there were these three British philosophers who came out with some important questions and answers. It was Locke who said that there is no such thing as a mind. There is only the body, the brain and the nervous system, and that means there is only matter. And it is what we call the mind is simply the activity of the brain and the nervous system, and therefore mind is not a separate entity that exists apart from the body. There is no such thing as mind really, and that is what he thought. When he said that, another philosopher, Berkeley, bishop, he was a bishop, and he didn't like that idea. And he brought forward an argument to oppose that. And he said, well, what is matter after all? We are making use of our eyes and ears and all that, our senses, and it is with these senses that we are thinking of a thing called matter. It's a creation of our mind. So it is a concept in our mind. And it's an idea. And therefore there is only the mind. There is no such thing as matter at all. So these views are directly opposed, and one excludes the other. So the problem arose, who am I going to trust, or which is the truth? Is it that there is only mind, or is it that there is only matter? Then a third philosopher came up, and he said, well, you are both right in a certain way, but you are also wrong. And that is, what really happened was, one philosopher showed that there is no such thing as mind. The other philosopher showed that there is no such thing as matter. This means there is no mind and there is no matter. What we have is really the sense experience. That is seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking. That's all that we have. So he said there is only experience. There is no mind, there is no matter. Then it was after that that the French philosopher Immanuel Kant took that up, and he, of course, tried to put in his views, and he said there is a lot of truth in what Hume, this was the third person was Hume, said. There was truth in what Hume said, but he wanted to say further. So he coined the two words phenomena and noumenon. What is experienced through the senses is what he called the phenomena. And then he said, although what we experience through the senses is not the real thing, but there is something behind it which we are not able to really see. We cannot understand it. But there has to be something, and that is noumenon. So that way, so this was taken up by some other philosophers, and they were the people who started talking about a thing called the transcendental truth. But of course that was not accepted by some other philosophers, like the linguistic philosophers or the analytical philosophers. They said even if some people like the mystics are able to talk about something like that, still it is an experience, and we can never get out of the experience. And that's why they said we are not able to talk about the truth. We can only talk about statements, because everything is simply a statement. And so they started analyzing sentences to find out whether they are meaningful or not. So that kind of thinking was found in the West. Here the Buddha enters the same question. He was not ignoring that question, and he was not just silent. It is incorrect to say that he never spoke about these things, because they are in the Samyutta Nikaya, and also this has been quoted in the Visuddhimagga, the beginning of the Visuddhimagga, that he quotes that. That's Buddhaghosa who wrote the Visuddhimagga. And a Deva is supposed to have come to see the Buddha, and he asked the question in the form of a verse. Anto jata bahi jata, jatai jatita paja, tantang gotama puchama, ko imang vijate jatang. What that means is there is an inner problem and there is an outer problem. And who is able to solve this problem? Now, of course, people can interpret this in different ways, and even the Venerable Buddhaghosa, who wrote that Visuddhimagga, interpreted that in a different way. But what I see is that he was referring to the same problem. The outer problem is whether matter exists or not. The inner problem is whether the mind exists or not. So the Buddha's answer was really, he answered in 3 verses. There the author of Visuddhimagga uses only the first verse. Sile patithai naro sapanyo, chittam panyancha bhavyam, atapi nipako bhikkhu, so imang vijate jatang. So what he says is the person who practices the sila, samadhi and panya is a person who solves the problem, that's all. But the Buddha went beyond that, and in the last verse he points out that one who understands nama and rupa solves the problem. So that's very important there. Usually today, people who write about Buddhism and those who interpret the teachings of the Buddha, they tend to translate nama rupa as mind and body. That's not correct. When we examine the sutras and the teachings, it is very clear that the Buddha is not talking about mind and body. Because in the Mahanidana Sutra, in the Digha Nikaya, There you get the Buddha saying, defining Nama and Rupa in a very important way. He says, Nama is Rupa Kaya Adivachana Sampassa. That is Nama, Rupa Kaya Adivachana Sampassa. And Nama is defined as, no, Rupa is defined as Namakaya Patika Sampassa. Now, these Pali words can always be translated in different ways according to the person who understands or the who translates, according to his own understanding. But I would say this, what this means is the Nama and Rupa cannot be really separated. And Rupakaya Adivachana Sampassa. Now, Adivachana is something like a definition or an effort to express in words something that is perceived. So, Rupakaya Adivachana Sampassa refers to how the Rupa is being described or defined, and that is the Nama. And Rupa is defined as Namakaya Patika Sampassa. Now, Patika is a word like friction or touch. So, what I would say is that what the Nama refers to is the Rupa. Now, we have in English two words that express this idea in a certain way. That is, the two words are denotation and connotation. Now, if you, what does the word denote? Or what does this connote? Now, when you say like that, we are having a meaning very similar to that. And what does it denote means what is it describing? And what does it connote means what the description refers to. So it's a thing like that. So the philosophers have been discussing this in the West very much, and they have been trying to understand this. And the important thing is to understand that the Buddha is taking a position similar to the position taken by Hume when he said there is no such thing as matter and there is no such thing as mind. There is only the experience. Now, this is also expressed by the Buddha when he spoke about the vipassana meditation to Bahya Daruchirya, that person who thought he was an arahant, but later he realized that he was not, and he went to the Buddha. So that means he was very advanced in meditation. And so the Buddha could give his teaching in very short, so that he is able to understand it. So the way the Buddha said it was, ditte dittamattam bhavisati, which is today also misinterpreted in various ways. Ditte dittamattam means is something like in the seeing, that means S-E-E-I-N-G, in the seeing. There is only the seeing. That means there is no such thing as what is seen. The object is absent. And there is no person seeing. That is, the subject is absent. So the subject usually is the mind and the object is the matter. So when you say there is only the seeing, that means that process of perception is all that you get. Now this concept is also found in other sutras like the Mula Pariyaya Sutra. The Buddha describes this in detail. And there again, he is expressing the same view. Now he distinguishes between how the ordinary person, the Putujjana, sees things and how the Arahant sees it. He says, the ordinary person's way of seeing is ditte dittamattam bhavisati. No, I'm sorry. Pataving patavito sanjanati. He says, patavi is simply a word for solid. You can take anything like a chair, for example. So you look at the chair and you see a chair. So the ordinary person, the Putujjana, pataving patavito sanjanati. That means the ordinary person will perceive a chair. Sanjanati. Pataving patavito sanyatva. Pataving manyati. Having perceived the chair, he will come to the conclusion there is a chair. That is manyati, means forms the concept chair. First the percept chair, and now he forms the concept chair. Then he says, pataving patavito sanjanati, pataving manyati. Then he says, pataviya manyati and patavito manyati. Pataviya manyati and patavito manyati again refers to another two concepts which is found in Western philosophy. Western philosophers have been thinking about this. And that is, they use two words to express this. One is existence, and the other is essence. Now, when I see the chair, I can say the chair exists. That is the existence of the chair, that it is. Existence talks about that, says that it is. Essence means what it is. Now what that means is, I can say it is a wooden chair, so it is made out of wood. So the wood part is what it is. That it is that there is a chair there. What it is that it is made out of wood. So when we say Pataviya Manyati, we are talking about the essence of it. Patavito Manyati is we are talking about its existence. Pataviya Manyati and Patavito Manyati. And then it says Pataving Meti Manyati. He also thinks, becomes attached to it and says, this is mine. This chair is mine. Becomes attached to the chair. And Pataving Abhinandati. Abhinandati means he begins to be happy about the chair. He delights in the chair. Pataving Abhinandati. And then he says, why is this? Why is the ordinary person thinking like this? It is because apariññatassāt. That means he has not fully understood this. Now he goes on to talk about the Arahant. There are three things he is asking. The one who is under training and one who is already trained. The already trained person is the Arahant. One who is under training is the person who is now meditating and trying to see it in the proper way. He is only trying. But the important thing is what the Arahant does. He says, for the Arahant, one who is finished the training, patavito abhijanati. Now instead of sanjanati is perception. Abhijanati is something like super perception. Now what is the difference between perception and super perception? The difference is, perception is simply seeing it. Superperception is to look at the seeing. So the Arahant is not just seeing the chair. He is looking at the seeing of the chair, which is that mental process of perception itself. He is looking at the process of perception itself. That is the abhijanati. And when he does that, he says, pataving patavito abhiññatva pataving namanyati. He doesn't come to the conclusion there is a chair there, because he is aware that this is the perception of a chair. In other words, I am seeing a chair. I am not saying there is a chair there. What I am saying is I am seeing a chair there. So he is aware that it is a mental picture. And then he says, Pataviya namanyati. Patavito namanyati. So he doesn't think in terms of existence, he doesn't think in terms of essence. And he says, Pataving meti namanyati. He also doesn't think this is mine, this chair is mine. And then he says, Pataving nabhinandati. He doesn't take delight in it. And he asks the question, why is this so? Pariññattasāti. He has fully understood this. You see that pariññā, there are these two words, abhiññā and pariññā. Abhiññā is to see how the process of seeing is. And pariññā is the full understanding of this concept. And the abhiññā and the pariññā together is what is called paññā. Paññā is the advanced knowledge. Advanced knowledge. So the advanced knowledge is abhiññā and pariññā. So so here we find the Buddha going deep into this. And not only that, that it becomes very important to the person who practices the teaching of the Buddha. This is not some useless thinking, but it is the most useful thinking. So some writers say that the Buddha never discussed these matters. It is simply because they have never understood this properly. So it's very important to understand this, and maybe we can discuss further, and I hope you have understood it, and may you all be well and happy.